The panic is real. The panic is real. Woke welfare collectors at CNN, they are worried. They are downright terrified. The future of the Cemetery News Network is in doubt. Hell, at this point, the future of the Cemetery News Network might be in the woke cemetery. It is entirely possible that CNN will share another commonality with their sister network, HLN. Has anyone seen HLN lately? Has anyone seen Robin Meade? For the last 3 years, her face has been on the side of a milk carton. We are no longer waking up every morning to the radiance of Robin Meade because HLN quit producing live programming back in 2022. And if they're not careful, the same thing could happen to CNN. You know, there are a lot of ways to destroy a once profitable business. One of the most common ways is incompetent leadership, a complete lack of leadership. Look at what happened to the Saints as soon as Sean Payton and Drew Brees left the building. For 15 years, the Saints were one of the most well-respected organizations in the NFL. Sean Payton temporarily retires. Denise Allen is ordained as the new leader in New Orleans. And almost instantly, the Saints went from being well-respected to being a flaming ass fire. Look at the difference in leadership between John Biden and Donald Trump. Yesterday, the Trumper made a very difficult decision, a decision that I highly doubt John Biden would have made. Hell, Johnny B wasn't capable of making easy decisions. Jill, honey, since you're pretending to be a doctor, should I take Metamucil or Dulcolax? Of course, with Jill Biden pretending to be a doctor instead of being an actual doctor, she was not qualified to make that decision. She probably thought Midol was the cure for extreme constipation. Yesterday, Donald Trump made a difficult decision. A decision that most people, even in his own party, did not support. Now that the preemptive strikes against Iran seem to be successful, the Trumper is suddenly being praised. But even if it did not go according to plan, even if it doesn't work out, at least we have a leader in place who is willing to make a decision and deal with the consequences. At least we have a leader in place who's willing to tell you exactly what will and what will not be tolerated and follow through with his word. It sounds easy, but it's not. One of the primary signs of incompetent leadership, they're afraid to make a decision. 3 or 4 years ago, former CNN President Chris Licht, he claimed that we are shifting directions. I want CNN to be the place for normal people. We're going to be a hard news organization. 12, maybe 18 months later, Chris Licht was fired. Why? Because he failed to follow through on the decision he made. Another easy way to destroy an organization, debt. Debt is the ultimate destroyer both in your personal and professional life. If you don't believe me, just listen to the people who call into Dave Ramsey. Married couples making $500,000 a year who have less money than your average WNBA dump diver. 6 figures in student loans, $750,000 in mortgage debt, private school for the kids, 2 Mercedes in the driveway, and they're buying great value groceries from Walmart because they can't afford the real shit. Last but not least, inadequate employees. Maybe you have employees who are unwilling to buy into the direction of the company. Maybe you have host in prime time who can't draw flies to a fresh turd. Now, these are just 3 ways to destroy a business. I'm sure there are plenty more. But the problem for CNN, they are suffering from all 3 of these at the same time. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel is in the description below. Last night on the second channel, talked about Rachel Demita being fired by the Big Three for supporting and promoting Caitlin Clark. I explained why Rachel Demita deserved to be fired and why she should be immediately hired by ESPN. So if you haven't already, click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. Headline at the New York Post: CNN morale really grim as network faces corporate split. The New York Post spoke with several staffers working at CNN. Each one of them described the fear, the uncertainty that is prevalent at the network. People are worried about their jobs. They're worried about another round of layoffs. Some are even concerned about the future existence of the network. I know it sounds impossible. I know it sounds outlandish to say that CNN might cease to exist, but this is a very real possibility. I remember in the early 2000s, as WCW was losing the Monday Night Wars to the WWF, there were rumors that WCW would be sold. There were rumors that they could be downsizing. But at the time, no one thought it was possible that WCW would cease to exist. The company had been airing on the Turner Network since the 1970s. Ted Turner had always promised that WCW would have a home on his networks. There was just one problem, one tiny problem. Once the AOL Time Warner merger went through, Ted Turner no longer had control of his own networks. Literally overnight, WCW ceased to exist. That's how fast it can happen. That's how fast an organization that's been around for decades can become a distant memory. Do not think for a second that the same can't happen to CNN. Warner Brothers Discovery is going through some corporate restructuring. They're splitting their assets into two separate companies. One company will consist of studio and streaming operations, also known as the profitable side of the business, while the other side will consist of the cable networks, or as every hospital in the country would describe it, life support. Guess which side is going to be burdened with most of the debt? Guess which cable network in that side has lost $400 million in the last 3 years? Are you starting to understand the panic? Are you starting to understand why woke welfare collectors at CNN are polishing their resumes instead of polishing the turd? The new leader of the cable division, which has been given the name Global Networks, odd name for a division that includes CNN. Looking at their ratings, I don't know if CNN could be described as a national network. Hell, they are barely clinging to the status of being a regional network. The new leader of the cable division is a man named Gunnar Weidenfels. His name is very appropriate. I don't know if Gunnar has experience with firearms, but I do know that Gunnar is a marksman with a pen. This dude is a surgeon when it comes to cutting costs. What is one of the easiest and most efficient ways to cut cost? Well, if it were me, the first place I would look is overpaid, underperforming talent. For example, Andy Cooper's making between 18 and 20 million a year. Goodbye to you. But KC, Anderson Cooper has the #1 show on CNN. Andy's a household name. He's a huge star. So, having the #1 show at CNN, that's like being the leading scorer in the WNBA. It's easy to be the leading scorer when you're playing in a league filled with players who airball dunks off of a ladder. Paying Anderson Cooper $20 million a year to average 800,000 viewers, that is not sustainable. That dog won't hunt. Or as they say at CNN, that wolf won't hunt. Because Wolf Blitzer, woof, woof, woof. Wolf Blitzer is underperforming when compared to his compensation. CNN's paying Wolf $15 million a year. If I remember correctly, I think they've got Wolf Blitzer co-hosting some doofus morning show that no one is watching. His salary is probably higher than the ad revenue the show is generating. Jake the Bongo Tapper making around $9 million a year. Unfortunately, that $9 million, it is not enough to purchase the credibility that Jake Tapper has lost. At this point, we don't know who is going to get cut, but I can tell you with almost 100% certainty, someone is getting fired. You don't lose $400 million in revenue and people get to keep their jobs. But there might be some hope for woke welfare collectors at CNN. There might be a savior on the horizon. There might be an idea that could save the network. According to the New York Post, CNN plans to launch a streaming service. What? A streaming service? Again? When you say streaming service, I'm assuming the plan is to charge people monthly for access to this pile of garbage, right? Correct me if I'm wrong here. Didn't CNN try to launch a streaming service a few years ago? If I remember correctly, they called it CNN Plus. They went out and signed big stars. They brought in the heavy hitters. Obviously, they couldn't rely on the stars at the network because they don't have stars at CNN. So they went outside the network and hired big names like Jamel Hill, Rex Chapman, Chris Wallace. With stars like that, there's absolutely no way this could fail, right? 3 weeks after launching, CNN Plus out of business. The main problem for CNN, the damage has already been done. They've had 3 or 4 leadership changes in the last 5 years. They've changed the primetime lineup. They've changed the daily lineup. End result, always the same. Huge, embarrassing failure. And the reason it's a failure is because CNN has no credibility. This is a dying brand, and I don't think anyone is capable of saving it. What about you? Is there any way to salvage CNN? Let me know. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys tomorrow.